What's going on, everybody? I'm John.
And I'm Denison.
It's 2019. It's a new episode of The Catch Up. We're back, and that episode starts right now. That's right, we're back for 2019. It's a good feeling, man. I missed recording this for a couple weeks.
Oh, man, yeah, I missed recording this as well. I mean, I don't know, last week I kind of got that itch, but,
I know.
We were busy.
We've been busy, yeah, and we got a lot to catch up on because of that. But before we get into that, I want to remind everybody we do have the Catch Up Facebook page live right now. Live, you've already reached out to us and been following us on there, so thank you for that. But it is the Catch Up with John and Denison, and you can go to facebook.com/the Catch Up Cast. And that will take you to the page. You can follow us there. We're still growing the page, but so far what we've been doing is kind of sharing like when we're recording, obviously when a new episode goes live. And then kind of what we've been doing too is sharing articles that we talk about for the train topics. To give you guys some more details on them and stuff. But yeah, man, it's kind of nice having that extra way to reach out to the viewers. You know what I mean?
Oh, I think so. I mean, it's also just really cool just to see some reactions and stuff like that. It's just another cool form that we can, talk to people and kind of, I don't know. I think we could also get some ideas later on. I don't know.
Yeah.
What about you?
Well, exactly. I mean, that's what we hope for. We want you guys to leave your thoughts and your suggestions in addition to just following along with what we're doing and everything. And with that said too, wherever you're listening to this, be sure to like and rate and subscribe and leave a comment, leave us some feedback on there as well. Cause we check them. We check all the outlets actually. So yeah. So we gotta make sure we're providing quality product, providing something that you guys like. But yeah, so make sure you check out the Facebook page as well. It's just another way that we can connect with y'all. But so with all that aside, let's jump into it, man. What you've been doing? How's your holidays been?
Oh man, it's been pretty crazy. There's a lot of family time. It was actually really nice because this Christmas I could just spend a lot of time with just my parents and me. I also got kind of like a mystery experience from my sister. Via phone.
Oh, okay.
So for those listeners out there, my sister is actually in South Korea. She's teaching as a English teacher, which is really, really cool. She's the cool traveler of the family. So, I mean, why not South Korea, right? So, yeah, no, I got to talk to her on Christmas Eve, which, what was it? It was Christmas there at that time. And it was it's really strange. It's a really strange feeling in general, but it was a great time. It was a great conversation. And I also got to hang out with some of my cousins, which was nice. So, I had a great holiday. And
good.
Then, what was it? New Year's Eve. What did I do then? Oh, I worked.
Oh,
that's
right
the fun part about. Yeah, man. Fun part of doing support for stores is I gotta work when the stores are open. So
yeah,
but it was nice. I mean, I got to I worked, but I mean, I got to spend the rest of that time with a really good friend of mine, and we had a really nice time. We got to stay up, watch a bunch of movies. She got me to watch, what was it, New Year's Eve.
Oh yeah, I know that movie.
Or whatever.
Yeah,
that was corny, but whatever.
It's corny, but it's got a lot of, it literally is like one of those movies that's like, hey, look at all the famous people we got in this movie. You should come watch.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's like, hey guys, you thought we were done with the cool movie stars? Well, guess what? We got another one here.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it wasn't terrible. It was just corny.
Yeah.
I like it.
It's a nice movie. Yeah. No.
And, yeah.
Well, good. Yeah. No, that sounds like a good time. Yeah. Did you have to work New Year's Day at all?
Yes, I did actually.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
couldn't stay up that late, but I mean, it's all good. And not granted, so I did stay up late. I wasn't smart. I wasn't an adult there, so I actually stayed up till like what was it? Oh man, I stayed up till about 2, or I should say, I got home at around 1:30, and then went to bed at around 2 or so. So yeah, that wasn't fun. I woke up that morning dead. But hey, the office was pretty much closed. So, I mean, it was just me and my coworkers. So we were all just there chilling. So it wasn't even
Kind of
that
an easy.
bad.
Yeah, kind of an easy day.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, let me tell you, this is the second year in a row now that I've had to work New Year's Day and New Year's Eve for that matter. But um,
Ugh.
yeah, and working overnight in the news as I do, I'm literally there when the ball is dropping. You know, like I'm watching the ball drop on our station, like in the newsroom. You know, and um it's crazy. It's kind of a weird feeling because like people, everybody in the world, it seems like, is spending New Year's Eve with somebody else in some way. um but the crazy thing about that is, like you talked about with South Korea celebrating Christmas before we do, like you start seeing all this video come in for us to use in the news from like
Hmm.
Australia doing their fireworks, and then South Korea and so on and so forth until it gets to us. And it's kind of surreal seeing that, they all um, celebrate well before we do. Um, but yeah, it's kind of weird to put in that perspective because you don't really think about it until New Year's, honestly, because
Yeah, no, you're right. Uh, yeah, it's just it is a strange feeling, just that there's a whole part of the world that already has New Year's, that's already in the new year,
right.
and it's just slowly trickling to you.
Yeah,
It's different.
it is different, but it's cool to see that. I will say, even though I'd much rather be with friends or family on New Year's, it is kind of cool to see it from that perspective. But yeah, that's how I spend my New Year's. And what about your Christmas,
Mm.
man? How was that?
It was fun. It was fun. Yeah, Christmas was good. Um, Really, to me, it was a chill day because I had to work the next day after Christmas. So it was really just me spending time with my parents. We watched movies and I just kind of hung out and enjoyed each other's company. And then I went home, or I drove back home and went to bed and woke up for work. So it was great.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
how was your Christmas and New Year's?
man. Similar to that, I mean, I had Christmas off, but how that works for me is I still have to go in for the next day at 11 p.m. Christmas night. You know,
Oh, that's kind of crummy.
yeah, it really is. So I mean, I technically did the exact same thing because I went over, spent Christmas with my parents, and then went to bed and then went to work, except it was like kind of backed up a little further from when you did it. Um, so yeah, that was weird. I don't think I had done that before. Um, it's kind of weird just having to, because you feel like you're rushing the presents and everything like that, and just rushing what should be a relaxing day and all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
But it's, as I say, it's not forever, so I just make the most of it. But it was good, everything was simple. The thing about Christmas is that it gets really busy though, especially like at church, Um
Mhm.
and so I'm involved in my church and play guitar there, and man, like just uh, we do like this, we call it the Majesty of Christmas, or yeah, it's like a big Christmas production. That's earlier in December, and there are 2 days of shows for that I
Mhm.
played a part in. And then we had um just, I really don't know how to describe it. There was each Sunday there was different Christmas songs, but they were like contemporary worship style, and so they're like songs you don't normally play. So I was having to like completely learn 3 to 4 or 5 songs every single week because I'm like, oh, I never heard this before, So you have that, and then you follow that up with um Christmas Eve had its own services, and where Christmas Eve fell was the day after Christmas Eve Eve, which was a Sunday. So you had
Mm-hmm.
the Sunday services, and then you followed that up with Christmas Eve, which were 2 separate services there. I didn't sleep like at all on that day because I had to be there early for those services to play guitar, and
Mm-hmm.
and then Christmas came, so it was just a whirlwind. It flew by. It was all good experiences, all good times, But I think that's kind of something that people tend to experience, and you hear it a lot in messages of like, embrace this time period, embrace what's going on in the Christmas season, because it's so easy for it to fly by because there's so much going on, man.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, there's so much, and I mean, I don't know. I feel like Christmas time it's a really cool time that you get time to spend with your family and your friends and stuff like that. But at the same time, it's such a busy time, and it feels like almost like entertainment overload in some ways, or just
Yeah.
there's just everything flying at you all at once, and it's so hard to um, in some ways kind of keep the Christmas spirit in some. It's a
Yeah.
little different.
It's true. I mean, you got all the Christmas music, the Christmas movies, um, the Christmas productions, and Christmas Eve stuff, and all the things at church. I mean, that's a lot right there,
Yeah.
and it adds up quickly. And so you're doing all this extra stuff, and then next thing you know, like Christmas is come and gone. Um, but
And
with
then
that,
it's New Year's.
yeah, and then it's New Year's, and then you're like, how is it 2019 already?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you ask me, like, it's still 2016 for some reason. Like, it was not 2019.
We didn't even make it to 2017.
No, 2017 was a blur. 2018 just I remember, but it flew by really quick. Yeah. So no, it still feels like 2016 to me, man. And I feel like I don't know. I saw this meme online the other day. It was talking about the 1970. Yeah, 1970 is almost 50 years ago, and I still feel like it was 30 years ago. Um, which is so true. It's just crazy how time flies. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but with the new year is bringing a lot of interesting and exciting new stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And so I don't know. We're going to talk about some more of that later, but we are going to get into a couple of things that are coming with the new year. And that includes
It's going to include CES that's coming up in this upcoming week. It starts on the 8th of January. And what we've got the Detroit Auto Show, which starts, I think the 12th is somewhere in the middle of this month.
Yeah, I believe you're right. And explain to the people what CES stands for, or what it means, I guess.
Consumer electronics, something.
Well, yeah, maybe
Showcase or
we'll
something
call it
like that.
Yeah, let's call it showcase. Yeah,
But it's pretty much where the latest and greatest technologies are displayed. So this is where you get like a few years back before 4K was even a thing. It was displayed here. You had your first 4K displays displayed at CES. You'll have all sorts of crazy, innovative technologies being displayed here. So, if you like anything technology, kind of like me,
yeah, right.
CES is pretty much the best thing in the world
Yes.
to check out.
Well,
so,
yeah, and
yeah.
talk about crazy technologies. There are some crazy technologies coming up here.
Oh, yeah.
And that grabbed my attention even. So yeah, we're starting off the new year with the first podcast episode of the new year with our bread and butter topics. We're talking technology and we're talking cars.
Yeah.
But so yeah, when we come back, want to talk about some of the crazier things that are going to get previewed at CES. and then the Detroit Auto Show. Later, we're going to talk about, of all things, the government shutdown and the impact that is having. So yeah, all of that and much more coming up on the catch up, and we'll be right back.
So one of the things that's going to be really cool out of all of the amazing technologies that are going to be shown during CES is phones. So one, this is also where we're going to get our first look at 5G phones, because Samsung, which we've talked about this before, is going to debut their very first 5G phone here, or at least that's what speculations are saying.
Okay.
That they're gonna have their first 5G phone here, which is going to be really cool. And it's also a lot of people are saying they're also going to debut a new battery technology, which is going to be interesting.
Really?
It's, if I'm not mistaken, it's a battery technology where they'll be infusing graphene into the battery itself to allow the battery to charge 10 times faster,
What?
as well as have a higher battery capacity. So that'll be really, really cool.
Yeah, I've never heard of that. What is graphene?
It's a carbon-based structure or molecule or whatever, built in like a hexagon, or not a hexagon, but more of an octagon. If you look in it in the in the molecular level, it looks like more of like an octagon. It's super strong and it's insanely light. And it's supposed to be able to do so many amazing things. It actually kind of took the world by storm. What was it, a few years back, maybe 6 years back or whatever like that.
Okay.
And people were saying like, oh man, technology is going to be, advanced super far into the future. But it never really, nothing ever really came of it. It's just because at that point we had just figured out how to create it, and not a lot of people had figured out how to
Harness it.
use it use it. So now you're starting to see a little bit more products start to use that. So most likely we'll actually probably see some products at CES using some of that stuff. And one of those things is supposedly supposed to be Samsung's new S10 with that battery.
Okay.
A lot of people are saying that it's going to. And so if I'm not mistaken, the way that they were saying is that they'd be creating a battery that would be called like a solid state battery almost. So it would recharge super fast. So you'd have a fully charged battery in like 5 minutes. Again, this is all speculation. So, I mean, we don't know exactly how,
Sure.
but the graphene infused batteries are supposed to be a lot faster, and they're supposed to be able to hold their charge for a lot longer. Whether or not this might happen, it sounds like science fiction, but
yeah.
I mean, the technology has been in some ways proven that, if the numbers are right, you should be able to create batteries like this to where, you have insanely fast charge time. It's like, oh crap, my battery's low. Well, plug it into the charger and you get full charge in 5 hours or, 5 minutes.
What?
And that'll last you the whole day.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's some pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, that does sound science fiction-y for sure.
It does.
And that would change the game, man.
It would. It really would. And to be honest, I think if Samsung wanted to really bring like a big foothold, I mean, they already have. There are speculations saying, actually, I think they are like committed to bringing their foldable display phone.
Yeah.
To CES.
I was wondering about that
because it would be perfect. I mean, they've already announced prices for it, which are super insane.
I bet.
But
yeah.
It's a first generation product, so they're always going to be insanely expensive. But they were saying that that might be one of the biggest things for Samsung is just that battery in general. Not, that would trump your 5G announcements. That would trump your foldable stuff. But if you're able to have this amazing battery, like, what do you do next,
Yeah,
right?
sure. Well, I
um,
was going to ask about the foldable OLED screen. We talked about that a couple episodes
mm,
back. Um, so
yes.
you would figure that they'd have to be debuting that as well. And it is interesting because the battery thing, like I can tell you right now, I have my iPhone plugged in, and it's a 6S, a couple of years old. Um,
Hmm.
but I don't know if it was a software update or what, but it just decided to not have a battery life. I have to charge it. I don't even think if I'm using it, let's say I'm using it, rather
Hmm.
than it just sitting there, it may last me 5 hours. you know,
Mm.
um,
Oh man.
yeah. And again, it's older. It's a 6S, like I said, but that's still kind of not excusable. And then if I do leave it sitting there, sometimes it'll have like 80% battery. And then the next time I pick it up, not having done anything to it, it'll say like 63% for no reason. Um,
Wow. So it just loses all of its charge
yeah.
in like that small amount of time.
Yeah. So I don't know if there's something else going on there, but the point I'm making is, I've had this on the charger for about 2 hours now. It's almost charged. If you could charge a phone in 5 minutes and then it lasts you beyond a day, let's say 2 days, that's
Hmm.
huge.
Oh yeah.
The only thing I'll say about the battery life is like, let's say you take a look at the battery life and that fast charge is going to be hard on the battery, but conversely, not having to charge it as much will be easier on the battery. All that wears the battery out every time you plug it in.
Yeah.
Um, so it's an interesting concept from that perspective, outside of the fact that obviously this would be revolutionary in the phone industry.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, well, to be honest, it battery technology would be revolutionary anywhere because I mean, think about it. This type of battery would accelerate electric cars. It would accelerate almost anything that uses a battery.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good
I
point.
mean, it would also probably accelerate robotics. Because
That's
I mean, we'd
crazy.
be able to make robots that are able to, move freely without any sort of, strictly on battery power, and we could charge them up a lot faster. I mean, there's a lot of things that it could help out. So,
Yeah,
them being able to debut this type of technology would be freaking amazing.
that would
But
be. Yeah,
yeah,
no, that's crazy. That is
it would be.
insane. I didn't even think about and the cars obviously great perspective. My question is, so I think you said this, but is Samsung really the first to harness this technology and put it into a product that consumers can buy?
Um, I'd want to say no, but I would probably say yes. Just because I know Samsung has been one of the forefront companies that has been pushing using graphene in like a multitude of ways, not just batteries, but a multitude of ways. So I'll say yes and no at the same time.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I think there are some more companies out there. I read an article a little while ago that showed that there are a couple of companies out there, smaller companies that are working with graphene and finding many different ways on how to use it because it is an amazing material. Um, that is able to do incredible things. It almost feels like that whole nanotechnology kind of thing that you always hear in like these comic book movies and stuff like that, where it's just a plot device. But
Yeah.
I don't know. It's graphene seems to be one of those things that's really cool. I mean, this is like I said, it's a really strong material that even that is insanely light but it can be I think they said it's like a strand that is so light that it like flows in the wind or whatever like that is as strong as like steel or something like that. It was
Wow.
something ridiculous. like that. Yeah, so it's pretty interesting. So just to see, like I said, seeing this integrated in so many different materials, because I think it's a really really high, really well conductor, really good conductor. So that's the reason why they would be able to use it in batteries and stuff like that.
Yeah, sure.
So this is, like I said, it's really interesting stuff.
That is for
Um,
sure. Um, but I know there's a lot more come out in CES. So what else do you got, man?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. So next would be LG, and their LG right now is killing it with their OLED TVs.
Yeah.
So they're actually there's rumors saying that they'll actually be displaying their 8K TVs, which last year's CES we actually saw the first versions of 8K TVs, but LG is saying that they or rumors speculate that LG will be actually bringing out their first consumer grade versions of 8K TVs,
Okay.
so things that actual consumers can buy. Now, granted, it's probably going to be an insane amount of money, but
Yeah.
it'll be cool just to know that they're focusing on trying to do 8K TVs for the consumer instead of it just being a tech demo
So what
of
makes them
sorts.
consumer grade?
It's the different types of components, and also the relatively lower price
Okay.
usually. So where the first 8K TV screens would be like, I don't know, like $10,000 or whatever like that. Consumer grade would probably bring it down to like $5,000.
Okay. All right. Gotcha. Gotcha.
um,
Gotcha.
which you look at it, you're like, oh, $5,000 for a TV is a lot, but I mean, if you're looking at it like logistically for these first generation products,
Yeah.
they put so much R&D and money into that. Going down to $5,000 from like say $10,000 at the
Yeah.
very
Oh,
beginning
I remember that. Yeah.
is like a huge step. So that's why it's kind of big there. And I also heard that there's some rumors that they'll be displaying some of their transparent OLED TVs. So it's almost like what you would see in some of those sci-fi movies, where the glass, it's actual glass, and you can see through it.
What?
So it'd be like something like you'd see like storefronts, like a jewelry store, for instance, right? Instead of them putting like their name, painted on the glass,
Yeah.
it would be a display,
What?
displaying all sorts of cool stuff like that, and then you're able to see through it.
That's
It's
crazy.
it's really really cool technology. So there's rumors that that's there. I mean, you can kind of, if you do some research, you can kind of already see that stuff around that LG's been working on, but
Yeah. So
this
that's
will probably
more.
be the first time they'll show it.
Well, that's more for like a commercial product stand, right? Like that's what that is.
Yes.
It's not like you would like
Yes.
replace a window in your house with this OLED television, right?
No, no. I mean, I don't know. You could do that for like show, but
Yeah, it wouldn't be practical
no,
though.
no. This would be, yeah, exactly. I mean, this would be strictly commercial based.
So how would you plug something like that in? Like where's the wires on that? Where are the cables?
If I'm not mistaken, the way it would be is that you would order it. So, say you did run like a small jewelry store or whatever like that. Well, you would buy that TV or display or whatever. LG would come in, install it, put it there, and I'm guessing that they would route it. They'd route all the cables and stuff like that down into the actual wall itself.
Okay.
Um, or building, frame or whatever,
Yeah.
and then just kind of route those cables back to a box where you could display all your content, or stream all your content and push that out onto that
Okay.
panel.
That's crazy. That's just mind blowing to me. Um, all these
Oh yeah,
things that we saw when we were kids and even not that long ago that were like so futuristic looking, and now so many of them are right around the corner. Um, and one thing I wanted to talk about, so I had seen this article, and this is what made me think about CES coming up. I think it's the perfect thing to talk about right now. Um, well, so you talk about 8K, like we're still at 4K. The 4K boom is still happening, and so many people don't actually ever watch anything in true 4K quality on their television, you know?
Oh yeah.
Because let's say you're just watching live TV, almost none of them. I know ESPN does shoot in 4K, but that is one of the few that I can think of that actually broadcast in 4K. Um, and so many of those you're not actually watching in 4K quality because the broadcasters still have to not only have the equipment to shoot that stuff in, but they have to have the ability to transmit it in at 4K quality as well. And um, so my question was, with that said, how do they expect to provide 8K quality when we barely even provide 4K quality? And the answer was crazy. So this caught my eye. And it was artificial intelligence meets picture quality enhancement. Um, and so let's see, I'm gonna read from the article here. Uh, so LG, like you were talking about, they already have associated artificial intelligence with like Google Assistant built into their TVs and stuff like that. But the next step
Mm-hmm.
is telling buyers that the AI algorithms can improve picture quality, which is technically true and then technically not true. But essentially, what that means is Samsung's Q900 8K TV. I think that's one of the ones we talked about. But um, what they're saying is they will have an artificial intelligence in the television that will determine the signal strength and quality of the picture and then use an algorithm to improve that picture quality to 8K quality, which is insane.
Hmm.
So even if it's not being broadcasted in 8K, I think it still does have to be broadcasted in 4K. Yes, it does.
Mm-hmm.
It still has to be coming in at 4K quality, but it will then take that 4K quality and then convert it up to 8K quality. So you will actually get to experience that. While most of,
In actual 8K.
yeah, and so it's worth the investment at that point because like I said, so much of the industry is still trying to catch up with 4K technology. Well, once they do, you're still getting the benefit of your 8K technology because your artificial intelligence is converting that for you.
Which is a really cool idea. I mean, it's not too much of a new idea, but it's cool that we have AI in TVs that will just do that on the fly. Because I know some TVs do a little bit of upscaling,
Yeah,
um,
sure.
which which is fiddling with the pixels. You're not gaining any more pixels, but it's fiddling with the pixels so it looks crisper. So, if you have a 4K TV and you're watching HD content, so just 1080p content, we already do have usually technologies in our TVs now currently that upscales that so it looks crisper. Um, then, it's still 1080p content, but it just looks better on a 4K TV.
Right.
So it'd be really interesting to see 4K TV or sorry 8K TVs, just making it better. I don't know exactly how they do that because that's a little different, but to be able to do anything something like that in a better, faster way is pretty amazing.
Yeah, and I'm sure the way they do it is kind of top secret, but my question to you is this though. So, how much of what you've watched so far well, it's a two-part question. So, how much of what you've watched or watch on a regular basis would you say is actually in 4K?
Let's see. So I watch a lot of YouTube.
Sure.
So what YouTube a lot of YouTubers do broadcast in 4K.
They do, yeah.
So I have seen 4K on my 4K TV because it looks cool like that.
Okay.
I'm still a little too cheap to actually watch anything on Netflix that's in 4K.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. I ain't paying that money.
But there is 4K content. But I guess if I wanted to be, in a round number or whatever, I only probably watch maybe 2 hours of worth of 4K
No, that's
content.
good though.
Most
That's
likely.
good though. Yeah, no, I would say that's probably more than most
Mm-hmm.
people. Um So the reason for my question is, can you actively tell a difference between 4K and 1080p? And the reason I ask is because I remember when 4K started to become a thing, and many people said that the human eye cannot really tell a difference between those two qualities, and what would be even less able to differentiate is from 4K to 8K. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's true. Now, I will say I can tell a difference between 4K and 1080p, um, but it's not as vast of a difference from like 1080p to 720, or 480.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. So
Uh, so I mean, I'll say, I think in some ways that's kind of like a twofold deal because, uh, so I can see a difference. I can see a difference between 1080p content and 4K content, but at the same time, it all kind of depends on your TV size because I mean, if you were looking at a 4K image on um, a small 4K TV, so let's say
right,
something like 32 inches, right? You probably won't see it that
you
much
won't.
because it all deals with pixel density.
Yeah.
Um, because the smaller the TV, the higher pixel density that you'll have. So say if it's a 32 inch, 4K TV or monitor or whatever like that, it's going to much have a higher pixel density than say a 55-inch 4K TV, just because the pixels are in a much smaller environment, so they're much closer together. So details will look a lot cleaner and stuff like that.
Sure.
So, if you were watching content that was 1080p on that 32 inch, and then you see content that's 4K, you probably won't notice much of a difference. But say if you're on a 55-inch TV and you're watching 1080p, and then you move it over to 4K, you'll see a difference just because of the pixels are more spread out, and you're actually putting in more pixels in that image to make it look a little bit crisper. So you will see a difference. But I think, if you were to move from 4K to 8K, I think you'd have to have an even bigger TV.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
um,
Yeah.
to actually see a little bit of a difference. Granted, I've never actually seen a 8K
Sure.
TV up close and
None of us
personal,
have.
so
Yeah.
who knows? Maybe there will be a bigger difference than what we can even think of. Because if I'm not mistaken, I mean, 8K is like 10 times has 10 times more pixels than a 4K display.
Really?
So yeah,
Huh. That's crazy.
so it has quite a lot of pixels there.
Yeah.
So you're working with a decent amount of
Yeah,
stuff.
and that is true. Like, you're not gonna see the difference on these little. These are pretty big back in the day, but like these little 37-inch
Yeah.
screens, or whatever, 36-inch, you're not gonna notice the difference on there. I will say that is partly why I do notice the difference on my TV is 55-inch. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, and going back a little bit is interesting how LG has just upped their game. They've always been near the top. But I'm a fan of Vizio. We've talked about that, and I always like Vizio products. But I would say they're like, they've always been a consistent, good quality television for the price. But then you have like
Mm-hmm.
Samsung and LG and Panasonic that have all traded for like the top spot, and LG, they're definitely the ones to watch right now. So
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well, I mean, ever since they came out with their OLED TVs, they kind of dazzled everyone at that point in time. So yeah, no, it'll be really interesting to see what they do with their next, big
yeah,
thing.
definitely, definitely. So let's shift gears here, literally.
Mm-hmm.
Let's dip our toes into the Detroit Auto Show real quick because that's the first big auto show of the year, you know.
Oh
And
yeah.
so we love talking cars and all that kind of stuff, and we've talked the last several big car shows. So yeah, what do you got for me on that? Because I'll be honest, coming into this one, I always forget about the car shows. The crazy thing about car shows is, at least these big national ones, they happen so early in the year, and you're just coming off of Christmas and New Year's and all that. That I forget personally. I forget. Um, Now a lot of people don't, obviously, because these things are always packed. But
Oh yeah.
but yeah. So talk to me about that and what's being talked about there.
So I mean, there's going to be a couple of cool things that'll be showing off there. One of them is the highly anticipated Toyota Supra will finally
Ooh,
debut with all the camo gone and stuff like that. So the legend will be
that's
back.
exciting.
Um, that is very exciting. I mean, it'll be like reliving the
We are
'90s.
reliving the '90s. I just want to
Um,
point that out. Uh,
we
like
really
at the
are.
same time,
I mean, trends and everything.
yeah. I mean, at the same time, we're like stepping into the future, but we are reliving the '90s. Like grunge is coming back. Flannel, denim,
Yeah.
you know, and then the Toyota Supra. Um, yeah, so
hmm
that's exciting. I'm hyped about that one. Of course, it's probably going to be like the Honda NSX or now the Acura NSX because that was like a really cool sports car that the average person could afford, just like the Toyota Supra was. And now the Acura is pretty pricey. I'm afraid that might happen with the Toyota.
Well, I mean, people are saying. I think they're saying that the prices are going to start around $60,000 to $70,000.
Yeah,
Which,
no.
I mean, if you really look at it, though, if you go back like into the '90s, the Super was priced at like 40 something, $43,000 or something like that.
Oh, really?
So yeah, back in '90s money, that's a lot of money. So
That's a
it's
lot of
kind
money.
of getting priced. Yeah, it's getting almost priced. If you adjust for inflation, it's about the same price. Granted, this Supra is going to be very interesting because the last Supra was all Toyota built. So it was Toyota's inline six, it was Toyota's chassis, all that good stuff. Well, so the difference with this one is it's been designed with BMW. So
Whoa.
um, yeah, so it's going to be really interesting because it was co-designed with BMW, so it was, and it's going to have a BMW engine, um,
Really?
just because. Yeah, because Toyota wasn't making inline sixes anymore, not really,
Okay.
and for them, it wouldn't really make too much sense for them to just create one inline six engine, and then just for the Supra. So who they went to some of the people who make inline sixes really well. So they went to BMW. So BMW is going to have their own inline six engine in there, which is going to be really cool. Again, still, it was co-developed with both of them, and Toyota's going to put a little bit of their spin on it by tuning it up. And then they both worked on the chassis, so it's going to be a really interesting car, to be honest.
That is
It looks
interesting.
really cool. And if anyone remembers what it was a few years back when Toyota debuted the F1, um, it was it the FT actually concept or whatever like
FT86.
that?
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. It's going to look very similar to that. Because from some of the spy shots that we've seen, it's going to be an interesting car, so that'll be really cool. We have some reports now for the next car. We have some reports now saying that we may see the 2020 C8 Corvette. And
Oh no.
so what's going to be really special about that
No, I know where this is going.
is this is going to be the first mid-engined Corvette,
No.
which
No.
I know a lot of Corvette fans say this is blasphemy, but
Kind of like
you know,
myself. Kind of like the guy on the other end of the mic right now. I'm not
I
excited
don't
about
know,
this.
man. I think this is going to be cool. I think it's
Yeah.
going to be cool. It'll be something different.
I mean, I guess. Okay, but the only thing is, you told me this that they were going to make a mid-engine version. At least this was the rumor at one point. They're going to make a mid-engine
hmm
version and then a front-engine version, a normal one.
Yes.
Is that still the case?
What I'm I think so, but what I'm actually thinking is what's going to happen is they're going to debut the C8, right? and then they're going to still be selling the C7 around the
Yeah,
same time.
I think you're right.
So it'll just be the C7 still staying out there, and then you'll have the C8 out there for like, hey, if you really want a mid-engine, so selling them at the same time, so that way they can kind of put it out there and test the waters to see if people actually like it, if it's well received. I
Yeah.
mean, I think it's got a lot of potential, and if they're able to make this car amazing, from the get go, which I mean, everything, it seems like it's going to get chalked up to be really, really cool. Um, but if they're able to make this look pretty awesome and also drive really well and have amazing characteristics, then, uh, then it'll be really cool. It'll be
Yeah.
really cool. And I think
Well,
they'll be able to win over a lot of fans.
yeah, but my concern with this Corvette is that if you put an engine from the front to the middle, um, which I still don't know why they're doing that, but my concern is that it would make the price go way higher for a Corvette. Um, and the beauty of the Corvette has always been that it can take on, Ferraris and Maseratis and Porsches and all this, but it's still comparably much more affordable, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you're still talking about a car that, what is it, $60,000 is when it starts, is base price,
Well, yeah.
and then it can go. I mean, it can scale all the way up to like 100 and something $1,000 with their Z06 or
Yeah, the
whatever.
Z06. Yeah. Well, I'm not saying it's cheap. I'm just saying comparatively to the cars that it
Hmm.
outperforms and competes with head on, um, it's much cheaper, you know?
Hmm.
Um,
But I mean, I don't know. I feel like Chevy and GM themselves are able to do some witchcraft with the way that they price it and the way that they move it around. I think they could get away with it, not having that much of a steeper incline on price. Um, I think they should go for it. I mean, why not? Why not? Why can't they experiment? I
well,
mean, the
yeah.
Corvettes stayed the same for years. Why not have something different? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't see why not. I'm always for trying new things. It will be interesting. You'll have to let me know how people react to that one because that will be a huge swing. However, with the smart thing that they've done is they didn't just spring this on people. We've known this was coming for a couple of years. Um,
Oh yeah. Oh
so
yeah.
they probably, actively let that information leak out into the public, rather than, you know, rather than how it seemed like it was just people stealing the info and stuff like that. They probably actively leaked that information so that way, you know, longtime Corvette fans didn't just get in an uproar about the
Yeah.
change. But yeah, I mean, I want to take a step back to the Toyota. It is interesting to me that they are that adamant on having an inline six in the car. I think that's very interesting because most manufacturers would make changes. So they'll say, "Oh, we'll put one of our own V6s in there," or
Mhm.
maybe put the detuned version of what's in the Lexus LFA, as Toyota owns Lexus, um,
Mhm.
and put that in there. It's interesting to me that they're that set on maintaining what the sound is created by an inline six and how it drives. And for those who don't know, an inline six, you basically take a V6, it's just like it sounds, because the pistons create a V, in a V6. In an inline six, all those pistons are in a straight line. Well, not a straight line, but
Mhm.
they're in line with each other. Um, and so, yeah, it's a different type of engine. It's a very different build to it. But I also wanted to point out, it's interesting that um, Toyota's working with BMW on this. The type of collaborations we've seen between car manufacturers in recent years has been really interesting. I know General Motors and Honda have worked on stuff together in the past couple of years, and um,
Mhm.
and BMW, or not BMW, I'm sorry, Subaru and Toyota worked on what was that? The Scion FRS that everybody our
Mm-hmm.
age wanted to get. It was like the cool sports car of the early 2010s. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, yeah, no, it is really cool to see these partnerships because, if anything, I think you get really cool cars out of it. I mean, we had the overseas. It's called the GT86.
yeah,
Over here now, Scion is dead, so it's called the 86, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah,
The Toyota 86 is just straight 86.
yeah, yeah,
And then, of course, Subaru has their own, which is pretty much the exact same car, and it's called the BRZ. So, I mean, these are really cool cars in general. And out of this, new relationship that Toyota and BMW did, I mean, BMW's gonna put out their new Z4. Um,
Oh, really?
which is, yeah, so the Z4 is going to be the twin to the Subaru, or the Supra, I mean.
Really?
um yes,
Oh, that's weird.
they're built on the same chassis. I believe the engine is the same, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe slightly different. um they might have tuned their suspension a little bit different. Like, each of them will have slight variations and changes and stuff like that. If you look at them side by side, body wise, they're completely different cars. They look
Sure.
completely different. Because, of course, BMW is going to have their signature look, with the kidney grill and all that stuff. And then Toyota is going to have their own whatever look. I don't know.
Yeah.
So they're going to look different. But underneath, chassis wise, they're pretty much going to be riding on the same platform, which is really cool.
Yeah, sure. Wow, that's wild. I love the Z4. And really, I mean, if you remember the old Z4, they're completely different cars, although some of their styling between the Z4 and the Supra was similar in ways.
Mm-hmm.
So that is interesting that they're doing that. It's very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And going back to the engine thing, Toyota's CEO said, like, hey, our the Supra has always had an inline six, so we're gonna stay with that. We're gonna stay with an inline six in our cars because that's just how tradition is. That's how it is. It had its inline six before, so we're gonna have an inline six now.
Yeah, but see, okay, that's just what I'm saying, bro. Why can Toyota be like, hey, it's tradition, we're gonna keep an inline six in our car, but Chevrolet can't be like, hey, it's tradition, we've kept the engine in the front of a Corvette for I don't know, almost more than 60 years now. But you know what? We're gonna change that all of a sudden.
Yeah, well, also Corvette has been around a lot longer than the Supra.
Yeah, I know. That's it. Exactly my point.
No, and that means no, because that goes to my point of let's change it. Supra hasn't been around as long. And also the Corvette has been it's always had like cars still going. This is the first time that the Toyota Supra has come back from being gone for what, almost 20 years now?
Yeah.
Actually, more than 20 years now.
That, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we will agree to disagree on that one. But but that's all good, man. I know there's going to be a lot of exciting things come out from the Detroit Auto Show.
Oh yeah, man, all sorts of cool stuff.
Yeah, just those two are tip of the iceberg. I know there will be probably more electric vehicle things. We talked about the Rivian vehicles a couple weeks back.
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't checked those out, make sure you do. It's Rivian. The SUV literally looks like a Land Rover or a Range Rover, and it's all electric. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I know there'll be a lot of cool stuff for us to check out. And I'm sure we'll hit people with our reviews of it here in a couple weeks. But in the meantime, let's jump over to our final topic after the break. We're going to talk about the government shutdown, how that's impacting people, kind of what we would like to see happen in 2019, not just in politics, but in the world. We'll talk about that when we come back. this is a topic that really can't be avoided. Um, it's all over the news. It's everywhere you look. The government shutdown going on right now. Um, and it's hardly our first government shutdown in recent years, but I think what
Mm-hmm.
is gaining more attention about it is the reason for it. The reason for the shutdown versus in years past, um like last year we had a government shutdown around this time. um it was for the same reason as this year. However, the president is holding stronger on the reason he's avoiding the shutdown, or avoiding ending the shutdown, I should say, and that is the wall. This big border wall, the wall. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So that has been the big hang up. You got people on both sides of the aisle that disagree with it, people on both sides of the aisle that do agree with it. Um, and then you have this. I'll be honest, I don't see this ending anytime soon. Now, I could totally eat my words, and by the time this podcast goes live on Monday, maybe it'll be over. Um, but Democrats just took their off, or the House is majority Democrat now. Before, it was majority Republican, as well as the Senate. The Senate now has a wider majority of Republicans. The House has a majority of Democrats. And I do not see the House agreeing to a border wall. Um, so I don't really see this ending anytime soon. And what that's doing is it's affecting government workers, and many who are having to work without a paycheck right now.
Yeah. Yeah, which is insane. I mean, I think a lot of times we kind of forget that a government shutdown isn't just like, oh, well, people aren't making laws. No, it's a complete and utter shutdown. I mean, almost anything, any government agencies um, are usually, if they are working, if they are still going, are working without pay, like you said, and that's affecting millions upon millions of people,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is completely unacceptable.
Oh, yeah. I mean, actually, the lawmakers are the people that are least affected by this. They're the least affected by this. They're still getting paid, and that's kind of the fallacy in this. A lot of people have a hang up with this, myself included, because I would guarantee you that there would be a solution to these budgets a lot faster if the congressmen and congresswomen were the ones not getting paid. you know
Oh yeah.
and the repercussions for this are huge. Just this morning we ran a story about the exact issue that is trying to be fixed is actually worsening because of this government shutdown. There now, one court says they have a backlog, or I think they're speaking on behalf of the United States. The U.S. has a backlog of over 800,000 cases of immigrants trying to come into America. 800,000 because of this shutdown.
Which
Because
is
there's no one there to process it.
which is insane. I mean, and these are people who are, which is hilarious too, because these are the people who are actually trying to do the right thing, and who are actually trying to enter the country legally.
Yeah.
Exactly. And we're literally debating on creating a wall to keep the people who are trying to who are trying to enter the country illegally, and we're stopping the people who are trying to come into the country legally. Like, how does that make any sense?
Yeah, well, and obviously inadvertently, but it's still happening.
Yeah.
So the interesting thing to me about it is how it came about. It started off with the president wanting this $5 billion border wall, $5.8 billion border wall,
Mm-hmm.
wasn't going to get it in the budget, was okay with that. That's fine. We'll work on it down the line. And then woke up the next morning and said, you know what? And I think he tweeted about it first before he vetoed the bill. Woke up the next morning and was like, you know what? No, I'm not going to sign this without a border wall. And so he didn't sign it. And then there's been this deliberation about making it cheaper, as low as 1.7 billion and stuff like that. And you know, I don't know enough about infrastructure or architecture, but to me, it seems like to do the job that they want to do, it would honestly cost more than $5 billion.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Oh yeah. I mean, I believe that this would be something that would cost an insane amount of money. And again, this is one of these, which is hilarious. You know, it's a border wall that we won't pay for. We're
yeah.
starting the initial cost, but we won't pay for. We're
Well,
going to get Mexico to pay for it.
Sure. At first, it was we're going to get Mexico to pay
At
for it.
first, yeah, which is not going to happen.
No, and now it's we'll pay for it, but Mexico's going to pay us back.
Yeah, which isn't going to happen at all.
It's not going to happen.
I mean,
who would do that? You know?
No, exactly. You know, it's also interesting just because just thinking of architecture wise, but at the same time, it's just thinking like this is a wall. There are many means of ways how people can actually get into the country without actually, I don't know, crossing a border.
Yeah.
A lot of, I mean, most immigrants that get here illegally actually come from a plane. People who come here with expired visas, and then
yeah.
you know they're in the country. I mean, like, bam, there you go. I mean, the wall is not going to stop that.
No, it's not. And I think a wall is more of a political stance than it is actually functional defense. You know, I'm going to say this. I'm not going to say that it's our job to, put our opinion out there. But at the same time, you wonder, is this really the best option? And then conversely, you look at that money and people may simply be against a border wall because of the money that would cost. But then at the same time, you look at the fact that with the current administration, we have troops lining the border right now, actively patrolling it 24/7. How much does that cost? And that might end up costing more in the long run,
Mm-hmm.
So it's really, there's just, I've talked about this obviously with my coworkers a lot because we'll talk about this stuff out in the open. Immigration policy or border policy is something that seems like it should be pretty cut and dry, pretty easy to figure out. It's not. It's, I would say, one of the more convoluted issues, one of the more complex issues. You're dealing with, wanting people to come in the right way, a system that doesn't allow many people to do that in a expeditious manner. Then you have people coming in illegally that are here to do the wrong thing. How do you stop that? And then in the midst of all that, you have innocent women and children. We're supposed to be the melting pot of America. It's just, there's so many factors. And so you can't really say, I think this is one of those issues. And I think this is why it's such a hot button issue that's highly debated in America. There is a gray area. And in this political climate, not many people want to admit that. Not many people, we talked about this a few episodes back about how most of our political divisiveness, that's what candidates feed off of. They want that fear of the other side. They feed off of that fear of, like, if I'm a Republican, be worried about what those Democrats are going to do to you if they get in the office. If I'm a Democrat, same thing, except replace that with Republican. They campaign off of fear. They legislate off of fear. And this is for both sides. And so, you don't expect any difference in this political climate. Really, I lost my train of thought, really, but what
Well,
go ahead, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say that it puts a lot of people against each other. That uh, if anything, it creates another divide in the country to where it's like, oh, you're a Democrat. Well, then, like you said, it's instilling that fear, not just in the politicians that get put into office, but also just the supporters of those politicians as well, which just creates a divide and kind of another topic that we can't talk about in some ways.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Well, yeah, and so got my thoughts back. So what I was going to say was, this is something that there is a gray area in, just like there are other topics that are heated, that there are gray areas in, except you're never going to hear that conversation because they want you fearful of the other side or what they say the other side is going to do. And
mm,
so the gray area is completely ignored. And therefore, with situations like this and many others, you don't really end up hearing a rational solution. Um, in many cases. So, um, and take for example, gun legislation. Um, the fact that the president banned bump stocks. Okay, bump stocks are not something that are really needed in our society, But
hmm
here's this guy who campaigned as a conservative Republican banning bump stocks and doing it in the quiet of the night, doing it right before Thanksgiving. So it
yeah.
kind of slid under the radar. But the people who did notice that, who are his constituents, were not happy. They were not happy. And if you ask me, in my opinion, that's a sensible thing to do, a very sensible thing to do. But because of the fear of people taking away your guns entirely, those people that were upset believe that he just opened a door for that to happen. And that's the political climate that we live in.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think you're completely correct. Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's just people are scared of what's going to happen next. In some ways, it's almost like a bad reality show.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
So let's talk about what's going to happen next, because that kind of leads me into what I would like to see of 2019. It's a new year, you know, new year, new us, right? um, so,
oh yeah.
so, so, it's a new year. And with that comes, a lot of people have resolutions. A lot of people have just intentions of what they want to do differently or what they want to see be different. In this case, in this topic, I would like to see actual progress in the government. I know that's a joke as old as time that there is no progress in Congress, but what I would like to see is we bring it back to a mature level where we're not calling each other names, you know, making jokes about genitalia in some cases. Um, just bring it back to a mature discussion level. I'd be okay with that, even if nothing gets done. Even if nothing gets done, I would still be okay with that as long as the discussion is mature and not yelling and name calling and fear mongering.
hmm No, I'm right there with you. I mean, it would be great if we could just have civilized, just a civilized conversation with both sides are able to have a civilized conversation with each other without throwing fits or anything like that. And actually get down to the root of the problems that we're facing and understanding that, you know, that just because you disagree with me doesn't mean that you're wrong. It just means that you have a different point of view, but we want to find, that way we can make sure that we have people who are trying to actually find a true solution instead of saying like, you're wrong, I'm right, you should accept my point and end of discussion.
Yeah.
It would be lovely if we could have something like that.
Yes, absolutely. So, here's hoping that for that in 2019. I mean, it would be nice if not just, well, we consider these people our leaders, right? And one thing I think about when I see this behavior being televised, I'm not just talking about the president, I'm talking about many other people on Capitol Hill. I think about the generation below us, even, and how that's influencing them, how that's inspiring them when they see that. Because let's be honest, like political news is so prevalent nowadays. I don't care if you don't watch the news, if you don't care about politics, you're still seeing this. You're still being influenced by it. And so it makes me wonder, how the younger generation is being influenced by that. It's one of the main reasons I hope we do see a change for the better. But, outside of that, what is something that you would like to see out of 2019, whether it's personal or whether it's cultural or whatever? What would you like to see from the new year?
I guess on a kind of a social level, I would love to see a little bit more openness for other people's ideas.
Yeah.
Uh, an actual genuine openness, because I feel like lately we really have gotten to a point to where we're so closed off with everyone, um, and so focused on our own selves and being right all the time that we don't want to invite any other ideas. I mean, we live in an amazing um, time to where we have all the knowledge at our fingertips, but we're still complaining and arguing over things that really aren't, they really don't matter. And we're so concerned and so self-centered that what we're saying is so important that no one else matters. Like
Yeah.
no one else's opinion matters, no one else's actual thought process or anything like that matters. So I would love to see, openness to where we can actually have actual discussions instead of everyone getting mad about, what you just said or whatever like that. Um, of course, there are certain topics that you do need to be a little bit more sensitive about, but it would be nice to just have real conversations with people.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. No.
because I feel like we're so closed off that it's hard to get to know people.
Yes.
It's really really hard to get to know people and really hard to see people for who they actually are,
Yeah.
because we're all so focused on ourselves, and so it's so easy to get into our own facades and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that would be my main thing for
That's
2019.
good. I think, I've talked about this a lot off mic and maybe a little bit on, but that is definitely something facing our society right now. At least in our generation, but I want to say overall as well. In an age where social media is more prevalent than ever and we have more ways to communicate than ever, people are more closed off than ever. Um, and people are afraid to show who they truly are. And you see it in times, in just the most odd times. I mean, of course, of course, you can say like when somebody gets drunk, you know, the real them comes out. That's not entirely true. It is partially true though. Um, but then in times of grief or times of loss, you see real people. Whether it's for better or for worse. You see the real people. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, it to me it shouldn't just be in those moments. I think the world would be a lot more peaceful place and in a lot more productive place and just a lot more fun place if we just let our true selves come out. Because I don't know if people are afraid of showing weakness or they're afraid of who they are, but you know, everybody's a nerd. Everyone is a nerd about something. Everybody is weak with something, just as everyone is strong with something. So there's no point in hiding any of that. I would like to see that too. I think the social thing I would like to see, I would like for us to not be so offended. I know we've talked about that too. But we
Mm-hmm.
just live in a very offended society. And there's been a couple of viral videos just in the past 2 weeks about people being offended about stuff, stuff that shouldn't matter.
Yeah.
And again, it's like you said, it doesn't matter at the end of the day. And even I'll go back to it again. That guy with the big neck in the mugshot,
Yeah.
I'm I mean, was that important? No, but we had so many people hating on me writing that. And then, this guy gets arrested again and then uses that for his own publicity stunt. Um, I don't know. It just blows me away. Like how offended people will get about stuff that doesn't matter, like you said. So
Mm-hmm.
for a social aspect, I would like to see that. I would like to see people just step down off their soapbox for 5 minutes and just enjoy life. Um, and
Yeah, do things that make them
yeah,
happy.
yeah, not going around trolling people on social media or whatever. So yeah, and then from a personal standpoint, what I hope to see in 2019, I hope to see more growth. I can't really say that I want anything more than what we have going right now. We have this podcast.
Mhm.
We have a project I'm doing with Devon, our friend, that we have talked about getting on the podcast. I think we actually have it planned to get him on the podcast in just a couple of weeks. Um,
Oh yeah.
I have my own music project, uh, and then live gigs and all that stuff. Basically, everything that I want to do, um, is in motion, but I just want to grow. And so that takes, determination and consistency and then good people around you. Obviously, I got you doing this podcast with me, so that's a great place to be. Um, so really all I could hope for out of 2019 is just continued growth in the things that we're already doing. I'm already doing. And just see where that takes me. So how about you?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, personally, I guess I would really love to be able to kind of continue to push myself out of my comfort zone because I can see that I've been able to do so many amazing things. I mean, we're doing this podcast. I've met some really amazing people when I'm outside of my comfort zone. Um, and it also helps me grow. I think the problem with me is that it's so easy for me to sink back into that comfortable point where I don't grow. I end up getting a little stagnated. So I think that's going to be my biggest thing in 2019. It's just forcing myself out of my comfort zone so that way I can, do more
Yeah,
things. Do things that I really do want to do. It's one of those things that, you tell yourself like, oh, well, one day I'll do this or one day I'll do that, but it would be really nice if I can force myself to get out of my comfort zone so that I can actually start doing those things instead of just saying, well, one day I'll do that or one day I'll, continue to make excuses for things that I can easily just do right then and there. So I really want to push myself into that. I know I want to uh, personally, I want to get like a new car,
sure.
so that's a very, very
No,
big
that's
thing that
cool.
I want to try to accomplish by the end of 2019, and I want to do it in my own special way, um, just because I don't know, it's something that I want to do, and it's something that I feel very passionate about. So that's something really important to me, and just kind of overall get in a better lifestyle. I
Yeah,
think I am, doing um, workouts and stuff like that. But I'd like to, be able to up that a little bit more, so that way, personally, that helps me grow a lot
yeah,
more. So yeah, just overall, just personal growth, as in getting myself out of my comfort zone because I can tell that's where I thrive the
sure.
most. Granted, I do want to still sometimes have some comfort
Oh
moments,
yeah,
but
yeah. Well,
overall.
You know, you wouldn't really have a home base without it, you know. So
Oh,
yeah, I think that those are great goals. I will say, like, you know, I think we could talk about a couple of those in future episodes, talk about mental health, talk about physical health.
Oh, yeah.
You know, admittedly, I've struggled with anxiety more so than I have in the past several years, in just the past few weeks. And so, you know, that would be something personally I would like to accomplish this year is get rid of that again, um, and push
Mm-hmm.
that out because it does not come from a good place or a necessary place. And um, but you know, again, that's something we can talk about more in future episodes. Um,
Of
yeah,
course.
there's a lot of good things going here, and we have a lot to grow on, both personally and with this podcast that's already in motion. Um, it's been a lot of fun to do. Yet again, gotta mention that Facebook page is live. You can catch us on the Catch Up page, or it's the Catch Up podcast with John Denison. And you have to go facebook.com/the Catch Up cast. I'm not gonna forget it this time. And so yeah, you can find that on Facebook. That is live. We will be uploading links to the episodes, links to the stories that we're talking about, just keeping you involved in our lives, and much more. Um, and then, you know, wherever you're listening, be sure to like, rate, subscribe, leave a comment, interact with us. We want feedback. We want to know how we can improve, or even what you like that we're doing. You know, what it is that you like. Thank you all for listening. I know we're glad to be back in the new year, aren't we?
Oh, yeah, man. I'm super glad.
So, you know, wherever you're listening, thanks for catching up with us. This has been the Catch Up, and we'll see y'all next time.
See you guys later.